So I want to start with an example of a sort of infamous violation of trust by people who were sort of figures who represented the scientific community, at least the public health arm of the scientific community in the United States. And this, I think, is a good example that shows that trust often takes more than education and shared values. So the example I'm talking about is a public health study that started in 1932. It was carried out by the Public Health Service in the United States in conjunction with the Tuskegee Institute, and it began a study to record the natural history of the development of syphilis in an individual male. It was called the Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis in the Negro Male. The study involved 600 black men, 399 of whom had syphilis and 201 who did not. And the study involved no informed consent, so what bioethicists now call informed consent. You have an ethical obligation to tell people who participate in a study what's going to happen and what the risks are and what the trade-offs are and so on. And they never shared any actual information about syphilis with the men who were in the study. They just referred to their condition colloquially as bad blood. And what the men got for participating in the study were free medical exams, free meals, and burial insurance. This study was planned to last for 6 months, but it ended up lasting for 40 years, from 1932 to 1972. These men were kept in this study without ever being informed that they had syphilis and that it was a treatable disease. So in the study, the men never received any real treatment for their condition. Penicillin was found to treat syphilis quite successfully in 1947, and the researchers did not offer it to the subjects who were enrolled in the study. This fact became public knowledge in 1972, and as you would imagine, there was an enormous moral outrage across the country, but also what blossomed after this study was a significant amount of social distrust or mistrust between the black community and public health. And it still exists to this day. It's still a cause of some anti-vax sentiment in the black community in America. The point of this is that another aspect of trust that we haven't really talked about in the course of this term is that trust requires this background belief in our common interests and a belief that someone cares about your interests. So shared values are not enough. So the man drawing blood from this man here in this image, they might share certain values in common. They might think that truth is important, but sharing values isn't quite enough if the person with whom you share those values, they don't care about you and your success in life or your flourishing as an individual, then it might not be a good idea to trust them. So again, in addition to these solid, what we might call educational reasons for trusting science and practices associated with scientific research, in addition to the fact of its sustained engagement with the world and its rigorous procedures for reaching consensus, and the fact that scientists tend to share values in common with the wider community, there's also this necessity that we be able to trust that the people who are practicing science share our interests, that they have our interests at heart, that they're not basically writing us off as unimportant, that we can believe that they actually care about our interests. Seems to be a fundamental aspect of trust. And what I want to talk about next are some other examples of things that can undermine or get in the way of epistemic trust. Okay, so this week I'm trying something slightly different. I'm putting questions that I want to talk about during seminar in the actual video. So this is a question that I would like you to take some time to think about before you come to seminar this week. Other than the things that we've already talked about this term, what else do we need in order to win the kind of trust that we want to have from people so that we can have a healthy epistemic community? And what are the other things, what are the other strategies that we can use to win people's trust, especially when, as we saw in the example about the Tuskegee Institute study, when people have good reason not to trust us? What can we do to sort of welcome them into the epistemic community in a way that might win their trust. So please, before you go to the next video segment, take a little time to jot down your thoughts about that and bring them with you to seminar so we can discuss them. Thank you.